There we go. Okay, we are recording, just so you know.
Okay.
Okay, and welcome, Coach Garett.
Well, thank you for having me.
You bet. This is the Our Mother Goose Story Hour, and the Great Awakening is my favorite story. I think it's yours too.
It is. It is. I enjoy it.
It is. Nothing like seeing our people come awake.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know.
hoping it speeds up.
All right. Why don't you give everybody a little bit of background on yourself?
Okay. So, well, I'm 36. Was born in Texas. I'm a baseball coach currently. Grew up playing baseball. I've always been what I call an epistemophiliac, meaning somebody who loves to learn. um, so I like to read a lot. I've always been someone that's been interested in conspiracy theories because I have, like you have said, talked about before, spiritual immune system where I can read a story and I can discern like that there's something to this, and I like to go deeper into it. And I've always felt that there's something wrong with this world, especially when 9/11 happened, because the day it happened, I was in school watching it. And when I saw the tower fall, I knew immediately that's not right. That's not what they're telling us it is, because that was a controlled demolition.
So that
Um,
was basically your giant red pill.
that was it right there. I mean, I had always, been interested in the conspiracy theory about like JFK. Um, I had learned about that when I
That
was
was
young.
mine. That was mine. I was in
Yeah.
high school. I was in home economics. It was Camelot. That's what we thought after coming out of the Great War. Um, Suddenly we had color again. We had life again. We had children in the White House. We had a beautiful first lady. We had an upright, good, well-spoken president who really seemed to be
Yeah.
for the people.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And so yeah, when I learning about him, I remember learning about that whole conspiracy theory and thinking, okay, well, if the government's telling us one thing but so many other people are trying to tell us something else, I was like, kind of hard for me to believe the government, because I'd rather believe my fellow Americans. And then learning throughout history classes in school, because history was like my favorite subject in school. History and science were my two favorite. So when I was learning about history, I remember learning about all these horrible things that government did to people all over the world throughout the history of the world. And so I had a healthy distrust of government. And I think I was raised that way to an extent, because I would hear some of the things my grandpa would say about government every now and then. And he always talked about taxes. He owned his own business, so he he hated taxes, and he always talked about how there should be a flat 10% tax, right? Flat tax rate, and everybody pay equally. And anyway, so when 9/11 happened, I was a sophomore in high school. It was 10th grade. And I was, every morning before school, there was a cartoon that I really enjoyed called Recess. And I would watch that cartoon while I was eating a bowl of cereal. And that morning, I turned on the TV and I see one of the towers burning, one of
Oh,
the Twin
wow.
Towers burning. I never even knew what the World Trade Center was before that day. Never heard of it. Um, I lived in my own little bubble. So I'm like watching it, and they're saying a commercial airliner flew into it. And I was like, well, that's odd. Like, what's a commercial airliner flying that low for? Number one, that's what I was thinking to myself. And so I told my mom. My mom was getting dressed, getting ready to go to work. And I was like, Mom, come check this out. She comes in and looks at it, and she's like, what's going on? I said, they said a commercial airliner flew into it. And so like my first reaction was that it was odd. There was something weird to it. So I didn't like fully buy into it from the beginning. And then as I'm sitting there, the second one hits, right? And of
Yeah.
course, they said that was live, that happened live. To this day, I don't know if it was pre-recorded CGI, what, if it was like a missile with a hologram around it to make it look like a plane. I don't know. There's all sorts of theories on it. I don't know the
Yeah.
truth. But
We
I
didn't
just
know
remember
what happened, but we knew that we weren't being given a straight story.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
when that second one hit, I remember going, "Oh my God!" And my mom's like, what?" And I'm like, "A second one just hit. A second one just hit." And I said, "Mom," I said, "that's not an accident. Like this is on purpose. Like somebody's attacking us." That was where my mind went first. And then as the day went on, so I was in when I got to school, I'm at my locker and I'm telling my friends, "Hey, did y'all hear what happened to the World Trade Center?" And they're like, "No, what?" And I told them what happened, and they're like, "Oh, you're full of it. You're full of it." And I'm like, "All right, well, you're about to find out. It's going to be all over the news all day, right?" And so we go to class, and then all the classes had the TV on showing it, and everyone was watching it live. And I remember sitting in my English class when the first tower fell, and I turned to my friend Robert when it fell, because everyone in class like screamed out, and I turned to Robert and I said, "Dude, that was a demolition, you know?" And I was like, why would it fall like that if it got hit so high up? Like to me, it didn't make sense immediately.
Immediately.
Every, yeah, everyone else fell for it, right? And then of course throughout the day, it wasn't but a couple hours later they tell us Osama bin Laden did it, and I'm like, well, who's this Osama bin Laden guy? I'd never heard of him. And I'm like, how did they know so fast, right? So I just kept having all these questions throughout the day. So from then on, I always was like, they're not telling the truth. Like there's always some sort of lie. And then as I got older and started studying more conspiracy theories, and in 2012 I read a book because there was that whole theory that the world was going to end in 2012. So I read a book about it that mentioned all these conspiracy theories and like cited documents and stuff that you could go look up. And so I started actually learning to research that way.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started going down rabbit holes and learning things I never knew, and understanding, how the government operates better, how the Mockingbird media operates, and how we're being lied to. And that's where my healthy distrust of all of that originated. Basically from 2001 to 2012, it was a progression. you know
Yeah. Yeah, that is. And you were young enough that you hadn't heard that 4 trillion or $1 billion had disappeared the day before
Day
9/11.
before, yeah. Well, where'd that money
And I
go?
have to probably say that I wasn't paying that kind of attention at that time either. You
Yeah,
know,
I don't think anybody was, because it was such a traumatic experience. And having learned how now learning about how MK Ultra works, right? They put everybody under mass hypnosis that day. It
yeah,
was um and then of course they immediately come out with the Patriot Act that Joe Biden wrote to strip us of liberties, and put in place the TSA to catch terrorists, which to this day, almost 20 years later, they have not caught a single terrorist.
but
But
they've groped a lot of children, haven't they?
exactly, right. How many TSA agents have gone to jail for pedophilia and molestation and all sorts of crimes? So it's like, and then you find out Joe Biden, of course, is a pedo. You see these videos of him sniffing and touching children. It's like, and he's the one that wrote the Patriot Act that gave all of these pedophiles access to touch you, grope you, body scan
To
you.
normalize that horrible process.
That intrusion, that invasion of privacy. And and we accepted it. No problem. We were like, okay, yeah,
Those,
take it from.
we had been lulled to sleep. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people don't know what they don't know, and I think we relaxed certainly when JFK came to be president. We thought, oh my God, the office of the presidency is actually working for the people.
Yeah.
We can relax and we can go to work and we can build our businesses and we can raise our families and we can go camping and we can, do all the things that families do. And so they used that, to continue on lulling us gently into sleep.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things I recently found, well, I say recently, it was probably a couple years ago, that I found out about JFK's assassination was about the Zapruder film.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody believes that it's so weird. A lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people believe that Zapruder film basically came out the next day, and it actually didn't come out to almost 10 years later. And I think there's something to that. There's a reason why I think it's been fudged. It's been manipulated. It doesn't make sense to me why they would release it that many years later, right?
And that's actually one of Trump's campaign promises, was that when he got in and firmly seated, he would release that. Apparently, there are people who know.
Oh yeah, the JFK files. Yeah, they did release a bunch of JFK files. I believe earlier this year they declassified a lot of them.
A lot, but not that nugget that we're all looking for.
That smoking gun evidence.
Huh? That's right. That's right.
Well,
so we want to talk about the election. That's what's on everybody's mind. That's what's hot right now. And you said that you have a new theory. I come up with new theories probably every 3 or 4 days, to be honest, because, even though we've been researching for years now, new stuff is coming up every day, every single day. We're in the D5 avalanche, I think, at this point. Yeah. We haven't gotten to the D class yet. That's just ahead. So I'd like to hear your theory.
Okay, so I actually just kind of formed this today, because mine are always changing too, from maybe like a week to week basis. But so, December 14th is the day that everybody's looking forward to right now. That's when the Electoral College submits their votes, right? And I'm kind of upset that I missed this today, but Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, they actually did a presentation today, and Right Side Broadcasting Network on YouTube was showing it live. So I'd like to hear what they said, because maybe that might change my theory. But one of the things I was looking at, so do you ever, the website that I look at the most when I'm looking at Q Post, I used to look at QMap, but they took it down. So now I look at this one. It's called Q Research, but it's qresearch.ch, right? Yeah. So there's no like .com or nothing. And what I've noticed is at the top, it has a disclaimer that you can X out of, and it says Q's been silent for so long. When you X out of that, it says Congress will declare the results on 34 days from now. That's January 5th. Now, nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about that January 5th. I think that's the date we need to be looking at, because I think a lot of people are going to be let down on December 14th, to be honest. I think December 14th, the Electoral College is going to say it's Biden. And I have a few reasons why. I think that is because it's the information that is out there, the evidence of the fraud that's out there. It's not coming out fast enough. It's not coming out overwhelming enough to change the minds of the majority of people, right? I know the people
they're still getting fed the mainstream media. There is no evidence. Why don't you just go home, loser, and all that?
Right.
Exactly. So they're not even getting, from whatever sources they've depended on for many years, they're not getting a correct story yet.
Yeah. So, and that's the problem. Like if December 14th were to roll around and Electoral College, because that's 12 days from now, when that rolls around, if the Electoral College does say it's Trump, and all these people who are still asleep have not gotten the truth yet because they watch CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and all that crap, they would go crazy and they would riot, and Christmas would be horrible, right? Because we're dealing with children and adults here, and the adults, it looks like the adults have proven to be on the side of Trump and the children are on the left. And
Yes.
right.
To put it very, very simply.
Yeah. And I mean, because look at what's happening right now. You don't see anybody rioting over the election fraud, but had it been reversed, we saw all the rioting going on through the summer with the people on the left. So it's like, had it been reversed, they would start rioting. I think the plan that Trump is operating on is to allow a peaceful Christmas. And the way you do that is look like you're losing, right? And that's the way Trump operates. He always looks like he's going to lose right before he wins.
That's the art of war.
The art of war, exactly.
The art of war is to appear weak when you are strong, and the opposite, appear strong when you are weak. So
Yeah.
he's not all up and braggadocious. He's being, he's stating his piece. He's, giving his ways.
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
and so I think that come December 14th, in order for I think he wants families to be able to get together on Christmas and to have a peaceful Christmas. And he knows that our side is not going to riot. And so come December 14th, the Electoral College says Biden won. We're not going to riot. We're going to push it through the courts. We're going to do it the legal way. We're not going to go out there and do illegal things and burn cities down.
So do you think that the Electoral College might declare Biden?
I think so.
I don't, so. But that's, it's a potluck. We all bring our ideas and then we get to see what happens.
and I think that's part of the plan, because because then on December 18th is the deadline to the executive order that he wrote last year that gives 45 days from election, right? From 45 days from election for the ODNI to submit their report.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, nice. So that was an executive order that Trump wrote, and
I didn't know it expired on the.
Yeah, so it has a deadline, 45 days, and the 45 days from the election is December 18th, and in that report, so what it is it's about like the transition, a peaceful transition, and whoever is going to be the president, which at this point they're saying Joe Biden, right? They have to disclose all of their offshore accounts, all of their foreign interests.
Yeah.
So you'll have December 14th, Electoral College declares Biden the winner, and then when that report comes out on the 18th, it'll show, Biden has done all of this with these foreign entities and this and that, and that'll start waking people up, because then that's when the mainstream media will start reporting the truth, and they'll start exposing Biden for what he did. So from December 18th to January 5th, you'll have all of that time for all of the truth to start coming out. And then January 5th, Congress gets to actually declare the winner. And that's when they'll declare Trump the winner.
I'm not sure it'll even happen by then, but that's one path.
Yeah, and that's just my theory. I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but that just comes from me, like analyzing those things, and then noticing that for some reason on the top of that Q Research site, qresearch.ch, on the top of that, it has that countdown for January 5th. And I'm like, why isn't it talking about December 14th if December 14th is so important? So it makes me think that January 5th is much more important than December 14th.
I think it could be. I think that they've got, the way I heard it explained is they're not putting all their eggs in one basket. They've got multiple paths.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 days, 3 nights here that I have up on the screen is one of my favorite anons. 3 days, 3 nights is the time Jesus was in the grave before he was resurrected. He's a Christian anon. And he noted a little bit earlier at noon, said timelines are emerging. Trump has a rally in Georgia on the 5th. The court cases will percolate up to SCOTUS next week from 6 different states.
Nice.
Yeah, they're filed and they're moving up that way. Electoral college vote is around the 14th. The NDA, and I think this is what you were referring to. The NDAA vote was Section 230 removal around the 17th. Are you familiar with Section 230?
I am. That's the
It gives
that's
the
the
platforms immunity.
right.
Right. And then election EO report due no later than 12/18. That's also, I think, what you're talking about.
So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The whole in the NDAA thing, Section
Yeah.
230. That's something totally different. That's what's allowing Twitter and Facebook and all of them to censor us and not be considered a public.
Yeah.
And so that has to be repealed. But what also something I want to add something to that. Something that is in the NDAA that nobody for some reason is talking about, but you've seen my Twitter handle, right? Like, or not my Twitter name. My Twitter name is Repeal HR 4310.
Yeah.
My handle is at Qoach Garett with a Q, but Repeal HR 4310. Nobody really talks about that, and that is what Obama signed into law in 2013, which allows the mainstream media to propagandize us with immunity. This is why we have widespread fake news, and this is why it hasn't gone away. And I don't know why Trump has repealed it, and I kind of think, well, it's because he's letting them hang themselves and expose themselves.
Yep.
But yeah, he needs to repeal that part of it. That's the main part, right? And then we can actually get some truth. So that may be a good date to look forward to, because what if that gets lumped in with that Section 230? Repealing that part of it.
I have no doubt that they have their ducks in order on that.
Yeah.
And it's
I hope so.
It's going to be biblical.
Heck yeah, it is.
And we are waiting.
This is the apocalypse of the Greek definition, which means a revealing. You see a lot of people right now preaching end times, this and that. And it's like, I've been telling people, I was telling someone last night, no, it's not the end times, because if you read in Revelations, there's the apocalypse, which is the great revealing, and then the 1,000 years of peace where Satan is locked up for 1,000 years. And then when he's released, then Jesus comes back and we have Armageddon. Well, the apocalypse has to happen before Armageddon. And when has this planet ever had 1,000 years of peace?
Never.
Never. So that has
my
to happen.
knowledge anyway.
Right. So that has to happen first. And one of the beautiful things about it is, God tells us that he writes his story in the stars. And he's doing that right now. If you look, so I have a DVD called The Star of Bethlehem, and it talks about how the 3 wise men knew when Jesus was going to be born and where he was going to be born by following the Star of Bethlehem, which was when the planets aligned and Jupiter and Saturn converged to create one big bright star. Well, if you look at the planetary alignment right now, Jupiter's currently chasing Saturn. Jupiter represents Jesus Christ. Saturn represents Satan. And on December 21st of this year, they're going to collide, creating that star again. Yeah. And that represents Christ, right? That Christ coming to reign on earth again. So that's the 1,000 years of peace. So
I think you're right about that. It's an amazing time that we're in, and also December 21st is the natural solstice.
Yes, the winter solstice.
The winter solstice. So following that day, light gains again.
Yeah.
Right now, darkness is in charge until the 21st. Every day, the day gets a couple of minutes shorter at my my place in the earth. I don't know if it goes faster or slower, probably up, around the equator. But, we're at a point where by the 21st, it's going to be dark, literally dark by about 4:20 every afternoon.
I believe it. It gets dark here so early now, and I'm in Texas, in Southeast Texas. So It's crazy how early it gets dark now. It feels like it gets darker earlier this year than it has any previous daylight savings time period, you know?
It feels like it kind of. I think I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's amazing. Yeah, so things are lining up,
Definitely.
definitely. And when I look at what's happening, I do follow 3 days, 3 nights. All of these things have to come together before there has to be overwhelming evidence of fraud for Trump to declare martial law, to adjourn Congress. And Bill Barr said half of Congress is going to grip mode.
Yeah.
You know, he said, what
Mm-hmm.
can I say? Half of Congress is going to Gitmo. I mean, we're just all working into all these things. I
Well,
think
that's
we have check. We don't have checkmate yet.
no, not yet. And I think, a few things got to happen first. I think one of the things that'll happen is that's going to be a good signal of it would be a pardon of Julian Assange, because
And
he's one who do what?
and Snowden.
And Snowden.
Snowden just said that all he wants is to be able to tell his story in court.
Yeah, that'd be
He
good. I
exposed
don't.
crimes.
I hear conflicting arguments on Snowden. I hear he's bad, and then I hear he's good. I heard one of the things I heard was that he actually was a CIA double agent. The CIA planted him in the NSA to take down the NSA, and that's why he was the one that exposed that the NSA was spying, but the NSA was created to spy on the CIA. And I I don't know the truth behind any of that. I do believe Julian Assange is definitely a good guy, and one of the things he said is 90% of Congress will be taken out because 90% of Congress is corrupt, and so if that's the case, I
At
mean,
the
there's
very
500.
least, they took the money.
Yeah,
At the very least, whether they participated, beyond that, we don't know.
yeah, but either way, they defrauded the U.S. taxpayer, and there's gotta be a consequence for that, and I think we're gonna see that because all of this double standard stuff will continue if there are no consequences. And it's quite obvious that, there's a lot of criminals within our leadership ranks and within Hollywood who deserve to be taken out, you know.
Here's something a lot of people don't know. If I could go ahead and talk while I pull this up.
But I think, because so we have 535 people in Congress, and if 90% get taken out, I mean, that leaves us with hardly anybody in Congress. So we're definitely going to have new elections. This election's already, like, in my mind, on November 4th, it was null and void. I think I tweeted out on November 4th or November 5th. This election's already null and void, and
It is.
we're going to have new ones at some point.
It is. Here's something that just, and this is old. I know there's been a lot more added to it. Why are these many of our House of Representatives and this many of our senators dual citizens?
Right?
Dual
Uh,
citizen is dual loyalty.
mhm. And most of them are dual citizens of here in Israel, right?
Yes.
So here's something I pointed out to a friend of mine recently. I was like, okay, um, you know how there's all these people who are saying we need free education here and free healthcare here. I said, do you realize that the U.S. taxpayer dollars go to pay for that in Israel? They get free education and free healthcare from our money and many other countries also. It's like if we can pay for that many countries to do it, why can't we do that here? And I told him, I said that the problem is you have a lot of congressmen members who are dual citizens of here in Israel, But one thing that a lot of people don't know, we have a lot of CIA agents who are dual citizens of here and Iran.
A lot of
And
them are on in the MSM too, the mainstream media.
yeah, yes, yes.
Oh,
Most of your prominent national news reporters, like Anderson Cooper, for example, were groomed by the CIA. So,
oh yeah. Well, his mom is Gloria Vanderbilt, and she's a high satanic witch.
mhm.
You know, a
And
lot
she
of.
sacrificed her other child.
So the story goes.
Yeah.
A lot of them say that he was sacrificed to become a transgender, and is Kathy Griffin, the one who held the bloody head of.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Maybe. I've always thought that there's some sort of relationship with Kathy Griffin and Andy Dick because they look so much alike that maybe they're brothers. But a lot of these families are also inbred, right? So for instance, I read so on this on it's called FBI.vault.org. I think that's what it is, or thevault.fbi.org. Anyway, you can pull up all the documents that they got at Osama bin Laden's compound, and there's they turned in all the books. This is what happens when your adrenochrome and foreskin supply. Ugh,
Look at
she's
what's
so
happened
ugly.
in such a short time. She was really pretty cute, there.
Yeah, she does kind of look like Anderson Cooper there. Um, but but yeah, what they did is they took all the books that Osama bin Laden had and they scanned them into PDF documents. And the man had a ton of books on the Illuminati. And I clicked on one called The 13 Bloodlines. And I read like the first 5 pages of it. I was at work at the time. And so I didn't have a whole lot of time to read it. But within the first 5 pages, it talks about how there's 12 bloodlines that are directly derived from Lucifer's blood. And there's one that's derived from Jesus Christ's blood. And those are the 13 families that run everything. But the one that's um, derived from Jesus Christ's blood has been tainted by the other ones, right? Like they've bred with that line, so to create Lucifer and Jesus together. And I was telling someone last night, I was like, I kind of have a theory that maybe the reason why all of these countries have been so proactive and encouraging to go get a COVID test, which if you get a COVID test, you're
They're
stupid.
taking your DNA. That's right.
Yeah. And, I mean, if they have to stick it way back into your brain to tell you whether or not you got COVID, but yet it can spread within 6 feet if you cough within 6 feet without a mask, why do they have to go so deep to tell you? Like, it's BS, right? Because they can take it from
Exactly.
saliva. But so was telling a friend, I said, they're taking your DNA. And I said, I think that they're trying to find Jesus Christ's DNA. They're trying to find who has his blood.
So they could
And
go
they're
get them.
and they're searching it. And the reason why I say that is because if you look in the Bible, when the year that Jesus Christ was born, King Herod sent his centurion soldiers out to kill every male that was born that year,
Mm-hmm.
and because they knew that the Messiah was going to be born. And the three wise men, of course, went and told Mary and Joseph, you need to get out of Bethlehem, and they left Bethlehem. And so Jesus was able to survive that culling of all the children all the males that were born that year. And I see so many similarities with what's going on now to the year that Jesus Christ was born, because all the planets are aligned the exact same way.
Uh-huh.
And so it makes me think whoever is, in charge of the world, which we know that Satan rules this world, right? And all these people who, it's kind of crazy how all these countries kind of did the same thing at the same time in reference to COVID, and as far as going out and doing all this testing of everybody, in some places doing mandatory testing. And it's like, they're searching for something. If they can take DNA from that, they're searching for somebody. So
That's for searching for anybody who has, anybody who has the genes.
yeah. Yeah, I really believe that. But I mean, at the same time, though, that's just the theory I came up with on my own that and it could be just imagination, but at the same time, like there's a real big part of me that believes that, because it's like if we're about to have Christ's reign here on earth, and if Satan doesn't want that, of course he would get his minions to try to stop that. And what better way to stop that?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And for our listeners, that is the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati is up on the CIA.gov website. It was a book by Fritz Springmeier. And so let's see, it's got 292 pages. Anybody can access it. We'll put that in chat when we go live on YouTube. So anybody who's interested can take a look at it.
Yeah. I think I'd encourage everyone to go just take a look at Osama bin Laden's documents. He had a lot of them, so it's not like you really need to dive into them unless you have the time to do it. But just scroll through the titles of the books that he read and the documents he had, and it'll make you believe, in my opinion, it'll make you believe that Osama bin Laden is not who we were told he is.
He's not.
Yeah,
I'm
I
pretty
think he's
sure
something.
already.
you can tell a lot about a person by the books they read.
You certainly can. And have you noticed that all of these people who've been doing work from home videos like Ellen DeGeneres and Tom Hanks and all of them, most of
Yeah.
them are sitting in front of a bookshelf.
Yeah. My mom, it's so funny because my mom always points that out. She goes, "How come every single one of them is in front of bookshelves? They have the books in the background." And I was like, "Well, I know that when you're in college and you're taking like a speech presentation class, excuse me, like a speech course, one of the things they talk about is um, if you film yourself talking in front of a bookcase, people automatically assume you're smart because they assume that you've read all those books, right?"
Yeah.
And but what's really going on with those is, and a lot of anons have figured this out, because they'll pause it and zoom in on the titles of books,
Yep.
and they'll make these connections here and there, and it's really
It's
interesting.
like back channel comms of the creepy people to each other.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, this one's laying down, this one's cocked, this one's sitting straight up, and look at the titles, and it's been
Yeah,
fascinating. It's
it
been
really
absolutely
has.
fascinating.
It
Yeah.
really has. It really gives you an insight into who some of these people are.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not, I don't ever really try to push anything as I believe this. It's I'm considering this.
Yeah.
I consider all these different things, and I'm completely open to knowing truth when it comes.
Yes.
We're looking for truth. We don't have it
Yeah.
at this point. We have lots of little pieces. It's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. I guess I should probably start wording my theories differently, because I do say I believe sometimes, but then my beliefs will change like the next week
Yeah.
based off of new information. So maybe
Sometimes I
let's just
say,
say I'm
at the
considering.
moment, I believe.
Yeah.
but then I always want to say, and yet I am totally open and welcoming to any new information that comes and brings us closer to an actual truth.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
it the scope of this is just so incredible.
It
And
is.
going back to the election, how many people that have been involved in this, and turned out that 2,400 of the poll watchers in Arizona were from California, and they
Oh,
told
that's crazy.
what they told one of the girls who testified. at one of the hearings in Arizona that we're here to help Arizona turn blue.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell?
I
Yeah.
was watching I was watching that hearing yesterday, the Michigan hearing, and there was the woman with the Trump cowboy hat,
Oh, she
and
was great. She
she
was
was
absolutely fabulous.
she went off, and when she talked about how these people are like, "Oh, this is our house now. This is our house tonight." And she took that to mean like, this is the Democrats' place tonight. We're going to tell them, uh, we're going to tell the Republicans and the independents what to do. And then she sat there and just cited all of these things with a timeline. She gave a timeline. And I'm sitting there watching that and I'm
She had
thinking,
so much knowledge. It was beautiful. And that's
it
why I say
was.
it's
And
like a potluck. We got to bring this person's knowledge in and this person's knowledge in. And,
mhm.
we're going to have a great soup.
Yeah. And
Truth
it, and it,
soup.
and then you still have people saying, well, there's no evidence, no evidence. And it's like right here, it's clear. This lady is presenting what she saw with her own eyes, right? When
Mhm.
you have that many witnesses who are willing to put their life on the line, sign an affidavit, be in the public eye with their story, well, hello, like that's courageous. And that is evidence right there. And that will be admitted in court because every court case, just about where every serious court case has eyewitnesses, right? And the jury listens to the eyewitness testimony and makes a decision on that. And right now, you've got hundreds of eyewitnesses, and while it was happening,
Thousands.
thousands. Yeah, and I remember while it was happening, people were live streaming on Twitter, like the people covering up the windows with pizza boxes, so
Yeah.
nobody could see in. And that was happening live. And as I'm watching that, I'm like, well, if that's not evidence of fraud, I don't know what is.
Right.
Like
If
what are they
somebody was
trying to
trying to
hide?
do right, they'd be inviting the people in.
Yeah,
There's just that certain behavior that goes with people who are trying to screw around and get over on people.
yeah. And that's, I mean, I think any objective jury, any objective person could look at that evidence and come to the conclusion, yeah, some sort of fraud is definitely taking place there. And that's why I tell people, Q's right when he says you're watching a movie. Like this stuff is so obvious. It is absurdly obvious that it's got to be scripted,
It's
you know?
almost caricature, but
It
it's
is.
part of the Great Awakening.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
how else are people going to wake up?
And just wait till, like, so when Trump was his most recent rallies right before the election, he would have the video board, and they would play these little mishmash of different videos showing all these gaffes that Biden
What a
did.
great thing that was. What a great
Right. and
addition.
and so and he's about to have a rally on December 5th. You watch him put
In
that up.
Georgia.
And watch how they're going to do the same thing with all these videos of election fraud, and they're going to turn it into a production. And I've told my friends this. I was telling one of my high school baseball players that I coached. I was saying, one of Trump's things that he did was he put together the greatest production to ever hit TV. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, The Apprentice. I said, now, I didn't watch it. I didn't like Trump before. Like, I never liked the guy. I actually did not like him until about a month before the election in 2016. What really made me like him was the debate I think that was about a month before, the debate when he told Hillary, you'd be in jail,
Yeah.
right? Like that part, when he said that, I was like, oh, yeah, I love this
That's
guy.
my guy. That's him. Yeah, I'm going.
but but in the primaries, I actually voted for Ted Cruz that year in the primaries, and and it was because, like, I think he's a very intelligent man. But then I realized, I said, he doesn't have the demeanor or the attitude to take on all of these enemies of the people. Trump does.
He
And
doesn't have all the banking knowledge. Trump has done literal business all over the world. and
Yeah.
and nobody else. God put Trump aside for us.
Yes.
He has knowledge that I don't know of anybody else, at least who has put themselves out to possibly be a public servant, quote quote, who has the bank of knowledge that Trump has.
Right. Right. He he was designed exactly for this, and it's so funny to see the left saying, "Oh, how can you say that he was appointed by God?" Right, and then they try to tell us what God would do, and it's like you people are godless. There's no way you would even know,
How would
right? I
you
mean,
know?
right? Like look in the Bible, look at all of the horrible people that God used as instruments,
Well,
like people that
everybody's
you would,
human. There's only one perfect guy, and
yeah,
we're hoping he's coming back soon.
yeah,
So for God to pick anybody, he has to pick an imperfect human, who has
exactly. He has no
stumbled,
choice.
hopefully corrected himself, learned from his mistakes, like the rest of us. Not that any of us are any, you know, Christ persons, but we learn from our mistakes,
Yes,
rather than thinking, ha, I got away with that one. Let's go. Come on,
right.
let's go. We're
Well,
going to
and
keep pushing.
another thing, so that's one thing, the these people on the left who dog people for saying that he's sent by God. um Another thing is, then you have also these people who used to follow Q and who are now trying to say that Q is a Luciferian movement, and they're saying that Trump is Luciferian, right? Like that whole
Well, there's
Dylan
all
Wheeler
kinds of
guy.
crud on the board. If you were to go
Yeah.
down to the Q board right now, if I was to make my first venture down there, I might have the same opinion. But
Well, and that
luckily we got on before they knew what was going on.
Well, and that's the thing though, is like people don't decipher like who's writing, right? You got to look at the trip code to know which one is actually Q, right?
Yeah.
But um one of the things that, you got these people trying to say that it's a Luciferian thing and that Trump is actually Luciferian, and I tell them, I'm like, hold on a second. Throughout the progression that I've been following Q, what I've seen is tons of people coming to Christ through what they're reading by Q, and Q telling people to read the Bible, posting Bible verses, and you're seeing these people come to Christ. President Trump, there's I don't think there's been a single person in this world that has been more prayed for and prayed over than that man. And so
Yes.
you can't tell me that he is inspired by Lucifer whenever everybody is so many people are praying that Jesus Christ consumes him. And and I've never heard any president talk about God or mention Jesus Christ the way he did
The
in
way
his
he
rally.
does. Oh
Do you
my
remember
God.
that rally when he talked about how his friend said he's the most famous person in the world, and he said, "No, I'm not." And his friend's like, well, "What do you mean?" He goes, "There's one more famous than me." And he goes, "Who's that?" And he pointed up and said, "Jesus Christ." And I've never heard a president even utter Jesus Christ, right? And I'm sure some
Yeah.
have, but not in a public realm like that. And
He was interviewing some young man in Africa also, and he said, Jesus wants you to come to something. He didn't do it with an American because they would tear him up. Media would tear him up. But
yeah,
it was, oh man, I've got to find that clip for you. But it's awesome. It's awesome.
yeah, it is. And so whenever people try to say that he's part of the same evil people, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't believe that one bit, because I seriously doubt the God that I know. I don't think that he would dismiss this many people's prayers. You know what I mean? He would answer those prayers for sure, because so many people are praying for this one man.
Yeah. Well, let me bring up spiritual immune system. You mentioned it earlier, and I'm not actually knew what it was. that you were talking about. I'm getting better with all of this. Unfortunately, some are born with spiritual immune systems that sooner or later give rejection to the illusory worldview grafted upon them from birth through social conditioning. They begin sensing that something is amiss and start looking for answers. Inner knowledge and anomalous outer experience show them a side of reality that others are oblivious to. And so begins their journey of awakening. Each step of the journey is made by following the heart instead of following the crowd, and by choosing knowledge over the veils of ignorance. And to me, that says it all. There's some who see and some who just do not, even if you point to it. Go,
Yeah.
look, look, look. And they go, you know. But I don't think
Yeah.
all of them is evil. I think people don't know what they don't know. They may not have spiritual immune systems, but maybe and I think that's our job actually, is to help awaken. Maybe they
That
have
system.
it, but they've never felt they able to trust it,
Yeah.
because the world comes so hard with all the other, crap.
Yeah.
As has been pointed out, people will lose their jobs. People will lose their wives. I mean, in California here, I know of a couple of guys who were for Trump whose wives flat out told them, if you say that in public, I'm going to divorce you.
Oh
And
wow.
they meant it. And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about one was a doctor and one was a lawyer.
Yeah.
But the wives were so up in that, bubble. California is different than anywhere else. The bubble is strong here. The struggle is real. And they silently voted for Trump because they were trying to keep their marriage and their kids together.
Yeah.
But it's all coming around. You know,
It's wild. I mean, it's noise. I think so many people are inundated with noise that a lot of people don't have their own thoughts. Everything they think comes from an outside influence, and um, there's a lot of people that lack the inner peace. And that's one thing. Like I've noticed, for instance, when I'm dating someone, if I see that she needs to take something to go to sleep, whether or not she has to drink alcohol or take some sort of medication to go to sleep. That's a huge red flag for me. That's like, okay, you're lacking that inner peace. You don't have the ability to quiet your own mind
yeah.
on your own, right?
Or if you quieten it, it's a scary place.
Yeah, and you can't
Yeah.
accept it, right?
And you
So
can't accept that. Yeah.
yeah, that's always been a huge red flag for me. And I actually learned that from one of my bosses one time. And he told me that. He said, if you're ever dating someone and if they're like that, get away from them because it's gonna be a tough relationship, right?
Run,
And
Forrest, run.
and like I had told you before when we talked previously that I learned things the hard way.
Yeah.
Well, I learned that the hard way because I ignored his advice and I dated a girl who was like that, who um, she really didn't have any inner peace, and her levels of anxiety were so high that it would drain my energy and it would shut me down. And she always had to have noise, whether or not it was music or have to be fidgeting, have to be doing something, right? And I realized at the end of our relationship that God used me as a tool to help her because, we, throughout our relationship, I was able to show her how I have inner peace. I was able to show her, how to read the Bible and how to understand God and how to hear God. And she had never talked to God before me. And then it was probably about 2 years after we broke up she called me and thanked me for
Aw,
yeah for introducing her
nice.
to God, and she's like, I can hear him now. And I was like, oh
Oh
wow. And
man.
like for me that was like the biggest accomplishment in my life. It was like when I get to heaven, God's going to say, hey, well
Well
done.
done,
Good
faithful
servant."
student.
Yeah,
That's what we're all looking for, is those words when our time
exactly.
is through. And it also gave you the opportunity to really sharpen your discernment.
It did. It opened my eyes up to, what type of woman that I would really want to be with, and what type of people I need to watch out for. And it opened my mind, it opened my eyes up to manipulation, right? To how people manipulate and the psychology of it.
Yeah.
And so I now I'm able to discern that when I meet somebody, when I hear them
It
talk,
goes
I
click,
can,
click, 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 click.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's
I'm like,
quick.
yo, you're trying to manipulate my way of thinking, or you're trying to impose your energy on me, or you're trying to suppress
Suck
me, or
my
this and that.
energy out.
Yeah.
The
So and
zombies.
it made me really start studying, because I learned something about myself that I didn't know. I learned that my thinking can be clouded by other people's energy. Right? I'm an empath, so I can feel your energy and I absorb it, and it can drain me. It can cloud my thinking, and so that threw me into the rabbit hole of Nikola Tesla and the whole thing about energies, frequencies, and vibrations. Right? and and then I went down that rabbit hole and learned so much, and it blew my mind. It was just like, I know why I'm here, right? I know why I went there. I know why those things happened, because it was that kind of sparked an awakening in myself. And then of course then I ended up finding Q, because the way I found Q is because I was in such a depression from that breakup, and I was searching for answers, how to fix myself, how to understand myself, and I ended up stumbling across Q.
You were
Really,
chosen.
yeah,
You were chosen.
yeah. And it was two things that I found. I found the whole thing about XRP, and then I found Q. And part of how, the main way I found Q was a friend of mine who was a Bernie bro, who told me, like, we were having an argument. He goes, "Oh, you must be one of those QAnon people." And I said, "What is QAnon?"
What is that?
Right. And then he goes, "Oh, it's a conspiracy theory." I'm like, "Oh, I love conspiracy theories." And at this time, I was still in a depression, still searching for answers. So I got into it, started learning stuff, and I started noticing connections, patterns, like we talked about, that were connected to what I had been searching the previous years to try to cure myself.
Yeah.
And so I started noticing these patterns, and I just remember at one point, like, my body just told me, "Hey, you're going down the right path. Like, this is going to help you."
Yes.
And so, it
I've,
did.
I've showed Q to a lot of people. Some people take it right up, and some people go, "What a bunch of crap," Okay, this is dividing the sheep and the wolves here.
Yeah.
It's identifying, because I also have a lot of friends coming back these days and saying, a lot of that stuff you said about Q is coming true now. I'm like, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Oh, especially now. I mean, I'm having so many people come to me and ask me things now who were telling me a year ago, "Oh, you need to stop reading that. You're full of it. Like, that's going to poison your mind." And I'm like, "No, like, the way I know it's true is because some of this stuff I already knew. And this person is kind of like reinforcing those, though they're validating it, whoever this Q is." And then I said, and then plus you got to look at the fact that the IP address that Q is posting from is routed through the Department of Defense,
Right?
the Pentagon, right? And then you also got to look at the fact that every time he posts a picture that's inside the White House, or the picture from inside Marine One, when you do a reverse image search on those pictures, they come up
They're
as the original. And it's like,
never been
how?
public.
Yeah, never been public. They exist nowhere else on the internet, but only where Q posts them, and
Yeah.
it shows up as an original until someone screenshots it and shares it. But but from the Q board, they're the original. So it's like it's somebody that is close to Trump and in the White House. And then the main validation was when that reporter in the press conference asked him about QAnon and said, "Oh, it's this, this theory that there's a satanic cult of pedophiles." And Trump was like, "Well,
Is that so
what's
bad?
bad? What's so bad about that? About
Is
like
that a
taking
bad
them
thing
down,
or something like that?
Yeah, because they was like, yeah, it's this theory that you're trying to take out this satanic cult of pedophiles. And he's like, well, what's so bad about that? And he didn't dismiss us. If it was so bad, if Q and if the Anons were so bad, and if they were Luciferian and against Trump and this evil entity, he would have dismissed us in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But he embraced us
And
right then and
he's
there.
trying to keep the optics so that MSM can't just, cremate him on it.
Exactly, because
But
he knows how important it is to so many people around the world, and I think he knows that if the MSM, if he were to confirm it like to the MSM right then, they would poison the mind so hard of these people who are out there rioting to make them attack anybody that has anything to do with Q, and like physically attack. And I think it was part of a I'm protecting you type of deal, like until it comes to the day where when we do hear that we do hear the question, who is Q? Like nobody's asked that question yet.
it's a team. It's not a person, first of all.
Mm,
We
yeah.
were told that. It's less than 10. I think that Bobolinsky that just came out with Hunter Biden's laptop, I think he's got to be
Part of the team.
part of the team. He came out with it, and like 3 days later, Q started posting.
I think Christopher Miller's part of the team too.
It really could be. It really
Yeah.
could be. And I
Because you
don't
remember
want
that.
to dox them. I don't want to get them out. I'm just want to put this out as, yeah, I'm thinking this and you're thinking that.
Yeah.
I
But
want
you
to
remember
show
that.
you. Go ahead.
Oh, you remember that time when he told all the press, "This is the calm before the storm," and they're like, "What? What do you mean?" And he's like, "You'll find out."
Yeah.
Christopher Miller was standing like directly behind him to his right, and then now all of the 3-letter agencies report to Christopher Miller now.
Now.
So I think he was part of the. He's definitely got to be part of the team.
Yeah. Well, this was my. I'm not sure this is the exact one. I thought it was a little bit earlier. This is 5/13/2018, but this was when I did it. Really, really threw my heart in. Up until then, I was going, "This is great, but is it real? This is great, but is it real?" But it said down here, "Do not glorify us. We are merely the vehicle. You are what matters. You are hope. You are love. You are peace. Stay united. Stay strong." But the main thing was right here: do not glorify us. Because I was starting to think that they were almost. I don't know what. I'm not going to speculate. But this is bigger than any one person or entity. You are fighting for truth collectively, the will of the people. Trust in yourself. The choice will always be yours. God bless you. Where we go one, we go all. And I think I went to sleep peacefully that night, believing that this was our team.
Well, and then you have all the people who have the T-shirts and stuff that says "We are Q." So it's like it's
We
all
are.
of us.
You
It's
are.
all of
I
us.
am. Yeah. And
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. It's so I'm so sure of it now, and I feel sorry for the people that are missing out on this entire thing.
Yeah.
Because
But we
it's
are
like,
called to help them along at this
yeah.
point. We have to stop being mad. We have to stop being triggered. You were talking about that earlier in baseball. You
Mhm.
know, the kid who threw his head up and wasn't paying attention. We have to not let that happen. The
Yeah.
anon training is to sit with these things until it doesn't trigger us, and then we're able to speak about it.
Right.
You know, we can't sit here and that son of a bitch this and that's you know. Oh no.
I know. And and just in the past couple days, right? Especially yesterday with that whole AP Associated Press story coming out about Barr, and that was totally manipulated and sent out to 30 MSM publications all at once, right? Um, you know, a lot of people on Twitter were freaking out about that, and I was sitting there like,
Oh
and
yeah.
even Lynn Wood posted something about it, and I'm like, yeah, patience, people. This is BS. Like, just wait a second, wait till the truth comes out, because it's going to come out soon. And sure enough, it came out a few hours later, and
But he didn't say anything like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I saw so many people jump on it right away, and they're flipping out, and I'm like, yo, like, by you flipping out, you're just making this whole great awakening process drag out, you know. But it's like, stop the flipping out, because you know,
Oh
it's like, people forget how the process works, right? Because, so for instance, the election, people were flipping out the night of the election and the very next day, and it's like, yo, Q just told us like 3 weeks ago that, about 2 or 3 weeks before the election, I think it was a drop on October 17th, it was somewhere in October, he told us that there would be fraud with one of the drops, right? Trump
said it at every rally for I don't know.
Every rally,
Every
and people still flipped out, and I'm just like, what are y'all doing, people? Like, you've been here long enough to know what's going on. You know, settle down, because we're supposed to help the ones flipping out. We're not supposed to be the ones flipping out.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much cognitive dissonance, like we talked about before. What is it? You can fool a man easier than you can teach him that he has been fooled.
You're right,
Along
exactly.
those lines.
Mark Twain said that it's easier to fool a man than it is to convince him that he has been fooled.
That's it. You got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is.
And it is so true.
Yeah.
So true. You know, I mean, you can just go practice that on a friend. Go tell a friend a made up story, and they'll believe you because you're their friend. But then go tell them how they've been fooled by a fake story, and they won't believe you because they want to believe whoever told
Something
them.
else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some other thing. And you know, we know people are terrorized right now about losing their jobs or, you know, being attacked. One of the witnesses at one of the hearings, I don't know if it was Arizona or Michigan or which one, but has already been beaten and hospitalized.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
That's
And,
ridiculous. And this is why I think what you're going to see. So I was actually talking to a friend earlier about this today on Instagram. I said, what we're watching right now is a huge civics lesson, right? So many people,
and
and
history.
exactly, and so many people don't understand the Constitution, how it works. And so what's happening right now is the Constitution is being like hammered down to its core.
Yes.
And we're going to see a lot of stuff play out between now and January 5th that is all constitutional stuff that 99% of us never knew or understood and never were taught.
Right.
And it's
It
going to
hasn't
be
been taught in schools for decades. My generation is probably the last generation that really had history and civics taught to us. I mean, I'm sure it was screwed with, but there was some semblance of truth,
yes.
you know, that you could feel.
Yeah. And so I was telling her, I said, so what's going to happen at the end of this is, once it's all said and done and everybody has learned what the Constitution really is and how brilliant our founding fathers were for bringing this, everybody is going to understand that the Constitution itself was divinely inspired. And since the whole world is watching, every nation is going to adopt its tenets. And we're all going to be we're going to be a constitutional world, and there's going to be a Second Amendment for everybody, so there's no government tyranny ever again.
I believe it.
Yeah, that's the dream world, and I think that that's the dream we will be living in.
Yes, well, we're all holding that vision. We've had a lot of crap put on our plate, but we've also had that vision put on our plate with the Bible. If we ever read it for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
And not just listen to what other 501c3 churches
Right.
have to say about it. If we ever got actually into it. There's a wonderful common law lawyer, natural law lawyer, Brent Winters, who does a fabulous job of explaining how the Constitution is biblical. He says it's just simply God's law, but put out for a state,
yes,
or a nation, or whatever.
it is. I mean, it's exactly how God intended us to be. I mean, you're born free, right? That's how you're supposed to be. That's what God tells us. Well, First Amendment is the freedom of everything, right?
Yeah.
Not people, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, all that stuff. That's the freedom of everything. And
Yeah.
then the second amendment being, the right to bear arms.
Means
It's
if you try
well,
and come and take my First Amendment or harm my family, guess what?
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, the Bible even says, sell your garments
Buy a
for a
sword.
sword. You
Yeah.
know, and because I see people sometimes argue all the time, like, oh, well, you're not supposed to do that. Jesus says to love and turn the other cheek. I'm like, yeah, that's what Jesus says. God says something different, but also Jesus is coming back with a sword to destroy,
Yeah.
right?
Well, he
It
turned
also,
all the tables over, and remember the merchant tables, he turned them all over.
mhm.
I mean,
It started whipping the tax collectors and
the
everything.
tax collector, I want to see that
Yeah,
come
yeah,
again.
I know. Oh, speaking of that, I was telling someone the other day, I say, you want to know what would be beautiful to come of all of, like, whenever the military tribunals happen and they start sentencing people for treason and whatever, and some people, will of course be executed, but then you're going to have some that will be getting life at Gitmo. And I said, what would be really cool is if they turn Gitmo into a tourist destination where you get to pay to go slap one of those assholes around for a little while. you know, I would totally pay. I'd pay them $100 and say, hey, let me go in there and whack Hillary Clinton or Obama a few times.
I'd like to, but I'm not sure that's a good thought. But what I have heard is it will be able, the Gitmo channel, I think I sent you the logo to that.
Yeah.
I think there's some version of that will have all of these people's confessions on tape and this whole thing laid out, including some of the ritual abuse and all of that stuff. And from what I hear, everybody will have to pay a minimal thing like $1 to see it, so that you're actually giving your express, not just permission, but desire to see some of this crap.
The choice to know is yours. Yeah.
And
I always wondered how that would play out, because how Q says at one point, he said, we'll know 20% of it will be public and 80% won't. And then one of the people on the board responded to that, like saying that we want more. And then he changed it to 60-40. And so it's like, well, so the 60%, like that's the choice to know. Is like, there's going to be somewhere that we can access to see that 60% that they're not going to just make public,
right.
And that's
Like
going to be the
smocking video. Remember, we got a screenshot of that smocking party.
Yeah.
Or whatever that was called.
Well, I think the whole Hunter Biden thing, the Hunter Biden laptop, it was kind of a sneak preview to the way that that's going to go, because like there's a website you can get on, gtv.org,
been there.
and and you can access some of those videos and see what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I remember the day that those videos were posted on there, I clicked on one and it had already had 450,000 views in the first hour.
People want to know if this is real.
Yeah.
Is it real? And somehow I want confirmation, that I'm not just projecting that crap on somebody else.
Right.
I don't need to watch it all, but I need to see some of it.
Yeah. And
That frazzle
that's
grip, I actually saw some stills of.
really
Yeah.
like the was it a bathtub with blood on it? Was that one of the still pictures?
No, there was a room and they had all the accoutrement around it, like, the tools that they used
Mm-hmm.
for torture, and they used to cut the girl's face off. And they didn't show any actual that, but this was like setting up for it. Apparently, these people film it just like they film pornography so they can watch it over and over. And yeah,
Oh yeah.
you know. So,
They get off to it. It's a snuff films. And so I have on my YouTube channel, I have a video titled Frazzle Drip, and all it is, it's a big warning logo, and it is an interview with someone who has seen the video,
mhm.
and he's describing it.
Oh, that
And
cop.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
surprised it hadn't been taken down
I
yet,
watched
but
that video. That was a good video, Coach.
yeah. I can't remember where I found it. I found it somewhere and screen recorded it and just put it on my YouTube channel, and I think it's got like 20,000 views. I was like, holy crap. A
Yeah.
lot of people were interested in hearing about it. And you know what? I told my friend about it. I said, because one of my friends doesn't believe it. And I said, you really think about what has happened. I said, Sidney Powell talks about what was in those emails on Anthony, or what was in that folder on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And she tells about how 12 NYPD officers viewed it and they all walked out of the room throwing up. And I said, or these are detectives, NYPD detectives. I told my friend,
Who've seen the worst of humanity for years.
yeah. And that's
Or
what I
they
told my friend.
wouldn't have been in the position to look at that.
I said, imagine the type of gory murders those guys have watched. And I said, so whatever, yeah, for them to come out throwing up and crying, whatever this video is on that laptop has got to be the most disturbing, soul wrenching thing that you've ever seen. And I said, and now 75% of those officers have committed suicide. 9 of them are dead from
Well,
suicide.
suicide by a bullet in the back of the head, some of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, suicide, because it's Arkanside is what it is. It's Hillary Clinton's way of people committing suicide. But yeah, it's once you let your imagination kind of take over, you can connect those dots and realize there's something very evil there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've felt that since JFK's assassination.
Mm-hmm.
I was in high school in home economics when it came over the speaker, and I went, "Oh my God, this is not the world I've been thinking it is."
Yeah.
And been on that trail ever since.
Well, with the whole JFK assassination, I've told people before, like I've tried to tell them how bad the Bushes are, right? And I liked the Bushes when I was younger until, I recently found out how bad they were over the past couple years. And I was like, how was I so blind to how horrible these people are? But like I was telling my friend, I said, do you remember where you were on 9/11? He's like, oh yeah, like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I said, why does George H.W. Bush always say that he doesn't remember where he was when
How could you not?
JFK was assassinated? Right, exactly. It is 100% impossible to not remember that. Well, 99.9% impossible. I guess it would be possible if you got hit in the head and had amnesia.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but and then there's actually recordings of him calling. He called his secretary the night before, and he was in Tyler, Texas the night before, and he tells her that he was in Tyler, Texas, and that he was going to be in Dallas tomorrow. And yet he says he doesn't remember where he was. So,
right. They're masters of deception.
They really are.
And they just try to add too much information to hide their little bit of dirty deeds.
Mm-hmm. And they present to us enough truth to hide the lies, you know?
80-20, 90-10.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're down to 90-10 of what's coming out now. I
Yeah.
mean, disinformation is necessary. They're not calling people out directly quite yet.
Yeah.
But I feel, Trump's goal has been transparency all along.
I think so too. I think, he does do some things that are misleading, but they're supposed to mislead the people he wants misled, right?
As he works them into check and then
Yeah.
checkmate. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people who are discerning like us, a lot of times we can see through when Trump is BSing people, because he does BS people at times. Like, you see it in these press conferences that he has. I mean, and it's hilarious. I'll laugh so hard because I'm like, oh, he's just twisting their titty, right? He's triggering them a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he said, oh my goodness. I have two things I want to say, and I'm not sure which one to say first, but I'll start with this. One day when I was down on the board, and particularly difficult on Trump, and somebody said, how does that man take all this focused hate? We know prayers work, and so does, how does he take it day after day after day? And then a little anonymous quote came in. For those lucky enough to read it, I want you to know that leading these people into trap after trap has been the crowning glory of my life.
I saw that.
Yeah. And that was like, that's how.
So yeah, he gets on the boards, he monitors the boards, he'll post as Q plus on there.
Or
I
just
think one,
as an anon.
yeah, I think one of the most validating things to the Q movement was the time when somebody asked, can you incorporate the words tippy top in your speech? And the very next day, Trump did that Easter speech with the bunny rabbit next to him, and he said tippy top. Yeah, and then he said it again, right, just to put emphasis on it. He said it twice back to back right there in that speech. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, come on, like, how can you not know that Q is coming from his administration somewhere or involved with it, So.
Well, they say it's difficult to convince a man of a truth when his salary depends on him not understanding it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, if they actually came out and said, wow, there is something to it, the rest of their life would be invalid.
Mm-hmm.
Invalidated.
Right.
By that. So everything is perfect. The Lord moves in mysterious ways.
It's beautiful, the tapestry that he weaves in this earth. Like, people don't understand, like, and we're not meant to fathom it. The Bible tells us we're not meant to fathom his wisdom. And I just kind of want to share a story with you that made me really understand his wisdom. So
awesome.
In 2011, I used to be addicted to opiates. I was prescribed painkillers for nerve pain and back pain and everything, because I've had a lot of injuries in my life. And I got addicted to Oxycontin. And this one night, I had taken 85 milligrams of Oxycontin, and I got a hold of 100 milligram morphine pill, and I took the whole thing. And so I had that 185 milligrams in me, 100 milligrams of morphine, 85 of Oxycontin, and I overdosed. And I left my body. And I remember being like on the ceiling of my bathroom, looking down at my body slumped over the toilet because I had been throwing up, throwing up, throwing up. And then to the point where nothing was coming out anymore. I had gotten the yellow bile out, then clear spit, then nothing. And then that's when everything started going black and closing in, closing in. And boom, I'm up on the ceiling looking down at my body. And I remember being so confused, like, what's happening? What's happening? And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing, they talk about the light at the end of a tunnel. Well,
There it was, huh?
yeah, well, it's not so much a tunnel, it's more like a void, like being in space, but there's only one star, and that's the light that you see. And you're not moving towards it, it's coming towards you. Like that's how I remember it being. But in that instance, I all of a sudden possessed all the wisdom of the world. Every single thing made complete and perfect sense to me in that instant. And I just like that feeling. I've never had that feeling ever again, but I'll never forget that feeling. The feeling of everything is perfect. It
And
is
there is a
exactly,
plan. Yeah.
yeah, exactly as it's supposed to be. And I remember waking up from that. And when I finally came to and everything, and I woke up from that, I just kept thinking, God is perfect. God is real. And his plan is exactly how it's supposed to be, right? And so from that point on, it's been so easy for me to accept the things that I think are imperfect, because I know there's a reason for it. God
Yeah.
puts everybody in the situation they're in and in the place they're in for his perfect plan, So
Absolutely.
yeah, I just want to share that with you because that was that.
That's an
Oh,
awesome story.
yeah, I wish everybody could experience God in a similar way, not necessarily experiencing him by overdosing, but experience like that.
However it comes to them. Yeah.
Yeah, that feeling of complete understanding and complete wisdom that everything is exactly as it should be.
It is. Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap up for today.
Okay.
And I'd like to come and do a lot more explorations with you, Coach. If you're up for
All
it,
right.
we'll keep it going. Thank you to all of our listeners. We're going to be in chat when we premiere this, so you can ask any questions and we can drop links. And we'll talk to you all soon. Where we go one,
We go all.
God bless everybody. Bye for now.
Bye.